Hi everyone, my name's Jordan and welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to do my October TBR. This TBR is quite ambitious, but I have faith in myself. My September TBR was quite ambitious and I think I got to almost everything I planned on getting to, plus some more. So I'm just gonna go for it. And if I don't get to all of them, that's okay. We're doing our best out here. First up, I have the continuation of the read-along we've been doing for the Sun Eater series over on the Grimoire Discord, hosted by Tall Guy Reads and Rekindled Reader. So we are on Kingdoms of Death by Christopher Rocchio. This is the fourth book in the Sun Eater series, and I am loving this series. This series is so incredible, and it needs to be talked about more outside of book 2. I read Demon in White in September and absolutely loved it, and I am so excited to get into this one. I won't go too far into what it's about, considering it's the fourth one, but the overall series is about a man named Hadrian, who starts out the story by telling us that he destroyed a star, which in turn killed billions of humans and destroyed an entire alien race. And he's basically telling his story from present day, hundreds of years after all of this has happened. And it's getting good. It's getting very intense, and I've heard that Kingdoms of Death, I mean, it's right there in the title, I've heard it's tough. So I'm excited, but also incredibly nervous. I'm like just waiting to see who dies, because Kingdoms of Death, come on. Next up is another read-along on the Grimoire Discord, and that is Ghost Story by Peter Straub. I don't know almost anything about this book, and I'm trying to keep it that way. All I really know is that it is a horror book, and I am not very well versed in horror. I'm very interested in horror, but I feel like I'm going to become very particular about what kinds of horror I enjoy. So I'm just gonna try to jump in feet first, try out some stuff, and see what ends up being something I like. So I'm hoping this is one of them. Again, don't know a whole lot about it, but excited to read it. Next up, I have The Golden Fool and Fool's Fate by Robin Hobb. These are the second and third books in the Tawny Man trilogy. I am about to start Fool's Errand, which is the first one. I'm reading these with Alex over on Tall Guy Reads, and we are hoping to finish the series in October. That's the hope. I'm very excited for this series. A lot of people say that Fool's Errand is one of the best books in the entire realm of the Elderlings, so I'm very, very excited to read it. I'm also excited to get back to Fitz and his whole world. I don't know much about what the series is going to be about, but I do know that there is a pretty large time jump from the Farseer trilogy, the end of it, to the beginning of the Tawny Man trilogy. So I'm excited to see kind of where Fitz is at, what all is going on. Also really nervous, but I'm hoping to also go read some recaps of the Farseer trilogy, because it's been quite a bit since I read it. So I need to go back, remember what all happened in the last book of the Farseer trilogy, and then come back and read this. I'm currently reading The Willful Princess and the Piebald Prince, which is a novella that has been recommended to me to read either before or after Tawny Man, if not both. So I am going to finish that up today, hopefully, and then start Fool's Errand. I'm hoping to finish Fool's Errand in this week before the end of September, so that's why it's not on this list. Next up, I have Valor by Gwen. This is the second book in the Faithful and the Fallen series. I recently read Malice with Alex over on Tall Guy Reads, and we both really enjoyed it. I have a dedicated review that I will link above for Malice, but I am very excited to continue on with the series and read Valor. I've heard that each book just gets better and better as the series goes along, so I'm so excited for it. And now that I kind of have a better grasp on who all the characters are, I'm hoping that I will enjoy this one even more than Malice. This story is kind of like a very classic fantasy story. There is a prophecy that says that at some point there will be a representative for the good god and the bad god, and there will be a war to end all wars kind of thing. And humans have been at war with giants for a really long time. And so it's just kind of like a huge host of characters that are all trying to battle with this prophecy as it starts to come true and try to figure out who's doing what and blah, blah, blah. So overall, really cool premise, very classic fantasy story. There's the prophecy, there's the chosen one, there's fantasy races, it's all really cool. I'm very excited to continue it. Gwen is an incredible author, and he really is so good at character development and I'm excited to continue on exploring with these characters and getting to know them better. Next up, I have a high priority read that I really hope I can get to this month, and that is Babel by R.F. Kuang. This just came out last month, and I was hoping to get to it this month, and alas, that did not happen. So I am dying to read it, so I'm going to really try to read it in October. This is a dark academia book by the same author that wrote the Poppy War trilogy, and this is supposed to be kind of like a historical fantasy. It is set in the 1800s, and there's a Chinese-British man who is working with the British government as a translator, and he's kind of grappling with his two identities and trying to figure out if what he is doing for the British government is actually for the best, as he kind of is assisting in their colonization efforts. So, very excited to read this. It sounds so good. I love dark academia. Some of my favorite books are dark academia. So I'm so excited to read this, and I think it'll be perfect for October because I feel like dark academia is perfect for fall, perfect for spooky season. And this cover is just like so pretty. So I'm very excited to read this. I really hope I can get to it in October. Next up, I have The Genesis of Memory by Neon Yang. This is a sci-fi book that is coming out at the end of September, so I'm hoping to read it in October. It is a book that has like a absolutely beautiful cover, and that is about all I know about it. I know that it is a space sci-fi, and that's really it. I've heard a lot of people talking about it. It's supposed to be such an interesting book. And that's really all I know. But I'm very excited for it. I have it pre-ordered almost solely because of how beautiful this cover looks. I'm trying not to look at any summaries or like the dust jacket little blurb on the inside. I don't want to know. I want to go into this kind of blind. But very excited for it. Hope I get to it in October as well. After that, I have another book that's coming out at the end of September, and that is Kingdom of the Feared by Carrie Maniscalco. This is the third book in the series that starts with Kingdom of the Wicked. It's kind of like, it starts out very YA, but then kind of gets more adult in the second book. It is basically a fantasy romance book about a prince of hell and a human woman. This series is a series that's like, it's not one of the most amazingly written books. They're not like gonna change the entire literary landscape, but they are so fun to read. They're light, they're fun, they're full of romance and pining and angst, and I've had such a fun time reading them. And with some of these bigger, denser fantasy books I've been reading lately, I think this will be a perfect kind of like breath of fresh air to read this. And I really enjoyed the first two. The way the last one ended was really interesting, and I'm excited to see kind of where we go from there. And yeah, excited for this new addition to the series. Next up, I have The Wall of Storms by Kin Liu. This book, it's gigantic. I recently bought this and the third one at Barnes & Noble like last week, and I was like, now wait a minute. This is a beefy book. So anyway, I hope I can finish this in October. It's a lot, but I did enjoy the first book. I didn't love it as much as I was hoping, but I've heard that the first one has kind of a different tone than the rest, and that they just keep getting better. So I'm very excited to get to this because I've heard that, especially in the second half of this book, things kind of like go off the rails and get really exciting, and I'm excited for it. I know that some of the things I liked the most in The Grace of Kings were a lot of these like inventions and kind of like the steampunk, silk punk nature of everything. And I'm very excited to continue learning about the magic system because in the first book, there really wasn't much magic. It felt more like a history book, and I've heard that you get a lot more magic in the later books. So I'm really hoping that we learn more about the magic system in this book and that we continue exploring the characters a little more in depth, because a lot of the first book felt a little impersonal since it had that like history book feel. It felt more like I was being told a history as opposed to kind of living with these characters. So I'm hoping that we get a little bit more personal character growth in this book and a little bit more magical system exploration. So very excited to get to it still, because I've heard that it gets much better from here on out. Next up, I have a reread. I'm going to try to get to The Alloy of Law by Brandon Sanderson. The fourth book in Mistborn Era 2 is coming out this year, so I'm going to try to get a reread in. of the first 3 in the series because it's been a bit since I read them and I don't remember a whole lot of what happened. So this is the first one in Mistborn Era 2. I really enjoyed Era 2. I think that while the first series is probably a technically better series, and the ending was so beautiful, one of the best endings to a series, and I really enjoyed it. I think Mistborn Era 2 is a lot more fun, and the audiobooks are really good, so I'm excited to get back into this world with this really interesting magic system, and just get back into it and be ready for The Lost Metal when it comes out, so I can read it right when it comes out, and remember what even is going on. Because we all know how good my memory is. And by that I mean, it's awful. Last but not least, I have a short story by Brandon Sanderson. I recently was telling some friends that I have not read anything in the Arcanum Unbounded yet, I don't think, which is his big collection of short stories in the Cosmere. So everyone was like, well, you have to at least read The Emperor's Soul. So I'm going to try to read that this month. The audiobook is only like 3 hours long, so listening to that sped up, I'll be able to finish it really quick. So I want to get to that this month. Eventually, I will read everything that's in the Arcanum Unbounded. It's just not been a super high priority. I sometimes have a hard time committing to novellas and short stories, and I don't know why. Like, a lot of times I'll be reading a series and I just don't prioritize the novellas and short stories that fall in between because sometimes they just aren't as interesting. And a lot of times also I feel like authors use the novellas to flesh out a different part of the world that we don't follow in the main story. And a lot of times I just don't really care about that. Sometimes it's really cool, but sometimes I just don't care. But I've recently learned that that is not always the case, and I should not assume that all the time, because there is a short story in the Sun Eater series that ended up being incredible and such a good read in between the 2 books it is set between. So I'm going to try to be better about reading novellas and short stories that are part of big series. So, gonna read The Emperor's Soul and eventually get to the rest of the Arcanum Unbounded. That is my goal. So, that is all of the books I'm planning on reading in October. It is a lot of books, and if I don't get to all of them, that is a-okay. But that is my hope. I would like to read all of those in the month of October. Fingers crossed. I think some of these will be perfect for fall reads and spooky season. While not many of them are like super horror or scary or anything like that, I still think that they give those vibes. But also I'm just continuing a bunch of series that I've started recently that I'm trying to finish. I'm trying to get through a bunch of series that I've started and not finished. So I'm trying to prioritize getting some of those books knocked out. Thank you guys for watching. Please comment down below what books you're trying to get to in October. Let me know if any of these sound interesting or if you've read them. Please like, comment, and subscribe. It does a lot to help grow a channel. And if you are really liking my content, please hit the notification bell to be notified every time I post new videos. As always, thank you for your support. It means the world to me. And until next time, thank you guys.